is the Rosetta Stone. It was the key to understanding Egyptian hieroglyphics, and it is one of the most precious and valuable treasures of the British Museum.
For years, the Rosetta Stone was considered merely a key to translation, a stone that allowed humans to decipher ancient Egyptian languages. But when it was recently rescanned using AI, what emerged changed the entire story. While previously considered a historical document written in just 3 languages, AI has recently discovered patterns and hidden clues that may represent more than just a translation, but a message written thousands of years ago, but waiting for modern technology to decipher it. And what AI has now read, instead of explaining history, it makes it even more terrifying. So be sure to watch this story to the end, because the real revelations are yet to come. To understand the details, subscribe to our channel, which features videos related to similar research. In 1799, while Napoleon was building forts during his Egyptian campaign, some French soldiers accompanying him were excavating near the city of Rashid, the ancient city of Rosetta. Their intention wasn't to make any historical discovery. They were simply looking for stones to strengthen a fortress wall, but during their excavation, they discovered a strange black stone. This was no ordinary stone. It was a heavy black granodiorite slab, intricately carved. At first glance, it appeared to be just an old inscription, but when the soldiers looked closer, they realized something special was written on it. In fact, the stone contained the same message engraved in 3 different scripts: hieroglyphic at the top, demonic in the middle, and Greek at the bottom. At that time, Greek was readable, but hieroglyphic and deotic were a mystery. This is where the stone's true significance began. For the first time, historians discovered a common link that allowed them to decipher the mysterious Egyptian hieroglyphics, using the Greek text as a basis, and they hoped to decipher the other 2 scripts. What had been a chance discovery gradually became the key to understanding ancient Egypt. Before the discovery of the Rosetta Stone, the hieroglyphic script of ancient Egypt was a mystery to the world. The symbols on temple walls, the figures carved inside tombs, and the strange markings visible on ancient monuments always fascinated people, but no one could truly decipher them. From a distance, they seemed like a fairy tale though, but no one knew what they really meant. Until then, most people considered hieroglyphs not a language, but a collection of mysterious symbols. They thought they were merely religious or magical symbols with no practical meaning. Some considered them decorative art, like something created by ancient artists to beautify walls. Historians had no way to read these symbols, so they were left guessing. In effect, it was the voice of an entire civilization captured in stone. But no one was there to listen. Temple walls, kings' tombs, stories of wars, religious beliefs, everything was recorded in those symbols. Yet they were silent. It was as if a book lay before them, but no one knew its language. Many scholars tried to decipher the meaning of these symbols. Some thought they were star signs.
Because every generation since has found a new way to listen.
Results were achieved.
Thanks for watching.
Were considered a kind of mystery.
Check out the videos popping up on
impressive,
screen for more unbelievable stories.
For years, the hieroglyphic
A
script
stone that
like
allowed
a
humans to
present,
decipher ancient Egyptian languages.
In 1822, a
But
major
when
change
it was
came.
recently rescanned using
Jean-François
AI,
Champollion
what
determined
emerged
to solve
changed
this
the
riddle.
entire
He
story.
had no magical method,
While
but he had
previously
patience and
considered a
strong
historical
clue.
document written in
The same
just
stone
3
on which the
languages,
same message was written
AI
in 3
has
languages.
recently
He
discovered
first carefully studied
patterns
the Greek
and
text
hidden
as it was a
clues
language already
that may
understood,
represent more
and then they
than just
began
a
to match
translation,
the message with the
but a
hieroglyphic
message.
script written above.
A
This
message
was no
written
easy
thousands
task.
of
Every
years
symbol,
ago,
every shape,
but waiting
every
for
name
modern
had to be
technology
compared
to
again
decipher
and
it.
again. Especially
And
the
what
names
AI
of kings
has
such
now
as
read,
Tammy became a major
instead of
clue.
explaining history,
When they noticed that
it
certain
makes it
symbols
even
were
more
repeated in the
terrifying.
same place where the king's
So
name appeared
be
in
sure
Greek,
to watch
a
this
pattern
story
began
to the
emerge.
end,
Gradually, they
because
realized
the
that
real
hieroglyphs were not
revelations
just
are
symbols;
yet to
they
come.
also represented sound.
To understand
that
while
these were
Napoleon
not
was
just
building
pictures,
forts
but a
during his
language.
Egyptian
That was the
campaign,
moment when the door opened.
some
What
French
followed was
soldiers
nothing short
accompanying
of
him
miraculous.
were excavating
When it became
near the
possible
city
to
of
read the
Rashid,
hieroglyphics,
the
people
ancient
believed
city
the
of
Rosetta
Rosetta.
Stone would reveal some
Their
profound
intention
secret,
wasn't to make
perhaps
any
some
historical
esoteric wisdom,
discovery.
a religious
They were
message,
simply
or a
looking for
lost
stones
story.
to
But when its
strengthen a
true
fortress
meaning was
wall.
understood, everything
But
seemed
during
quite
their
ordinary
excavation,
at first glance.
they discovered
In
a
fact, the Rosetta
strange
Stone
black
was no
stone.
magical document.
This
It was
was
a royal
no
decree
ordinary
dated
stone.
196 BC,
It was a heavy,
issued during the
black
reign of the young Egyptian
granodiorite
ruler
slab,
Tammy V.
intricately
It praised
carved.
the king, mentioned his achievements,
At first
and
glance,
most importantly
it
announced
appeared
tax
to be just
exemptions
an old
special
inscription.
privileges for the priests. This
But
was
when
a
the
form of
soldiers
political
looked closer,
propaganda at the time.
they
The king
realized
wanted to
something
strengthen his
special
image
was
and
written
gain
on
the
it.
support of religious
In fact,
institutions.
the stone
It was an
contained the
administrative
saying at the
document
top,
or documenting matters
demotic
related
in the
to
middle,
governance and
and
power.
Greek
But this
at the
raises an
bottom.
interesting question.
At
If
that
it was
time,
such a
Greek
simple
was
decree,
readable,
why was it
but
written in 3
hieroglyphic
different
and
scripts?
demotic were a
Hieroglyphics
mystery.
were commonly used
This
for
is where the
religious and royal
stone's true
symbols.
significance
Demotic
began.
was the language of the common
For the
people
first
in
time,
administration,
historians
and Greek was the
discovered a
language of the
common
ruling
link
class.
that allowed them to
same message
decipher
was
the
intended to
mysterious
reach every
Egyptian
class.
hieroglyphics.
This meant that it wasn't just a
Using the
declaration,
Greek text
but a
as a
message that could
basis,
be understood
they
at all
hoped to
levels.
decipher the
Commoners,
other two
priests,
scripts.
and foreign rulers.
What had been
The
a
use of
chance
3
discovery
scripts wasn't
gradually
just for
became the
convenience,
key
but
to
also a way to
understanding
consolidate
ancient Egypt.
power. This gave the
Before
message
the discovery
permanence and
of the
legitimacy.
Rosetta Stone,
This decree engraved
the
on stone
hieroglyphic
wouldn't
script
fade with
of ancient
time.
Egypt
In ancient times,
was a
writing on
mystery
stone
to the
wasn't
world.
just a way to convey
The symbols
information,
on
but
temple
also a way to
walls,
preserve
the
it
figures
forever.
carved
Paper can
inside
burn,
tombs,
cloth can decay,
and the strange
but stone
markings
lasts for
visible
centuries.
on ancient
Therefore,
monuments
when a ruler or
always
religious
fascinated
institution
people.
engraved something on stone,
But
it
no
wasn't
one
just to
could
convey a
truly
message
decipher
to the
them.
people of that time.
From
It
a
was also
distance,
to keep it
they
alive
seemed
for
like a fairy
generations to
tale.
come. A
No,
major
but no
shift
one
has
knew
occurred
what
in the
they
past
really
few
meant.
years. Understanding
Until
ancient
then,
civilizations
most
is
people
no longer
considered
limited
hieroglyphs
to humans.
not a language,
Artificial intelligence
but a collection
AI
of
has gradually
mysterious
become
symbols.
involved in this work, whereas
They thought they
historians
were
and
merely
linguists
religious
previously
or
spent
magical
years
symbols
deciphering
with no
individual
practical
symbols and
meaning.
machines are now able
Some
to identify
considered them
patterns often
decorative art,
overlooked by humans
like
within
something
a matter
created
of
by
hours.
ancient
Take,
artists
for example,
to
the
beautify
cuneiform
walls.
tablets of Mesopotamia.
Historians had no
These are
way to
thousands
read
of
these
years old
symbols,
clay tablets
so
marked
they were
with
left
nail-like
guessing.
markings. They
In
were
effect,
extremely difficult
it
to
was the
read
voice
because
of
many
an
parts were
entire
broken and the
civilization
language was incomplete.
captured in
But AI
stone.
models trained on
But
digital
no one
images began
was
to
there to
recognize
listen.
patterns among these
Temple
incomplete
walls,
fragments,
kings'
where humans would have
tombs,
taken years to
stories of
guess. Your
wars,
machines began to quickly
religious
piece together
beliefs.
possible words.
Everything
and
was
sentences.
recorded in those
Similarly,
symbols.
AI was used
Yet
on the Dead
they
Sea
were
Scrolls in
silent.
Israel.
It was as
Previously,
if
some
a
sections
book
were
lay
believed to
before
have been
them,
written by a single
but no
author,
one knew
but
its
the AI
language.
picked up on subtle variations
Many
in
scholars tried to
handwriting,
decipher
suggesting
the
that many
meaning of
different
these
people
symbols.
contributed to them.
Some
Even in
thought
Mayan
they were star
glyphs, long
signs.
considered blurry
Others
and
linked them to
incomplete,
mythology.
The AI discovered new
But no
connections by
concrete
looking at the
results were
frequency and order
achieved.
of symbols.
Hieroglyphics
What's the greatest
were
strength of
considered a
AI
kind
is
of
that it
mystery.
doesn't tire. It doesn't
Beautiful,
need to guess,
impressive,
and it isn't influenced
but
by emotions
beyond
or assumptions.
comprehension.
It simply
Here for
looks at the
years,
data,
the
every symbol,
hieroglyphic
every
script
distance, every
remained like a
repetition.
closed
It can also
door,
see how often
present,
a symbol
but
appears,
with no
in what
way to
order,
open
and
it.
where there are gaps.
Then,
and if
in
a part is broken or
1822,
missing,
a
it can
major
even
change
guess
came.
possible words based
A young
on language
French scholar,
patterns. That is, AI
Jean-François
doesn't just
Champollion,
read. It tries to
determined to
understand
solve
the
this
structure.
riddle.
It looks at how
He had
words
no
are
magical
connected,
method,
how symbols are
but he
repeated,
had patience
and where something
and a
different
strong clue.
appears. This is where AI
The same
emerges
stone
as
on
a
which
new
the same
decoder.
message was written
Now, the
in
question
3
was,
languages.
when this same technique is
He first
applied to one
carefully
of
studied
history's
the
most
Greek
famous
text,
inscriptions,
as it
the
was a
Rosetta
language
Stone,
already
will
understood.
it only reveal what we
And then they
already
began to
know,
match
or
the
will it
message
reveal
with the
something more?
hieroglyphic
When the
script
Rosetta
written
Stone was
above.
rescanned using
This
modern
was no easy
technology for the
task.
first time,
Every
it was
symbol,
attempted not
every
just
shape,
to be read
every
in,
name
but to be
had to
understood.
be compared
The high-resolution
again and
scan
again.
digitally revealed
Especially
every
the
detail
names
of the
of
stone,
kings,
every
such as
line,
Ptolemy,
every scratch,
became
every
a
gap
major
clearly
clue.
visible. When this
When they
data was
noticed
fed to
that
an
certain
AI
symbols
system,
were
the
repeated
initial
in the
hope was
same
that it would
place where the
confirm
king's name
existing
appeared in Greek,
translations, but the machine
pattern
began to
began
notice
to
something
emerge.
else. First, it noticed
Gradually,
the spacing between
they
letters and
realized
symbols.
that
In
hieroglyphs
some places,
were
the
not
spacing was
just
normal,
symbols.
but in others, it was
They
slightly
also
different, as if
represented
spaces had been
sounds.
deliberately left.
That is,
to the human
but
eye,
these
these
were
were
not
subtle
just
differences,
pictures,
often
but a
overlooked as a
language.
sign of the stone's age or
That
the
was the
craftsman's
moment
style.
when the door opened.
Then the AI
What
looked at the
followed was
alignment of the
nothing
symbols.
short of
Some hieroglyphs were
miraculous.
slightly off
When
from
it
the straight
became
line of the
possible
rest
to
of the
read the
text.
hieroglyphics,
Initially, these were
people
thought to be
believed the
minor
Rosetta
carving
Stone would
errors.
reveal
But when the
some
machine examined the
profound
pattern
secret.
across the entire
Perhaps
stone, it
some
discovered that these
esoteric
off
wisdom,
symbols were
a
repeated in
religious
many
message,
places. Repetition
or a
also
lost
became
story.
a crucial indicator. Certain
when its
symbols
true
appeared more
meaning was
frequently than
understood,
usual, and not just in
everything
terms
seemed
of
quite
meaning, but
ordinary
also in
at
their
first
position.
glance.
They always
In fact,
appeared around
the Rosetta
specific
Stone
locations.
was no
The
magical
AI also
document.
noticed that the stone
It was a
carvings
royal
weren't
decree
uniform
dated
throughout.
196
In some areas, the depth of the
BC,
markings varied,
issued
and in
during
others,
the reign
stroke
of the
style
young
changed
Egyptian
slightly,
ruler
as if
Ptolemy
the work had
V.
been done not by the same
It
hand,
praised the
but by
king,
different methods.
mentioned his
All these
achievements,
things seemed
and,
small when
most
viewed
importantly,
individually, but when the
announced
AI
tax
combined them, a
exemptions
pattern began
and
to
special
emerge.
privileges
And most
for the
importantly,
priests.
these patterns were not random.
This was a form of
The
political
statistical
propaganda
analysis
at the
revealed
time.
that these variations
The king
were likely
wanted
not
to
mere
strengthen his
coincidence.
image
That is, they
and
weren't
gain the
simply
support
artisanal
of
error
religious
or wear
institutions.
on the stone. This
It was
is where
an
thinking began to
administrative
shift.
document,
What had
or
previously been
documenting
considered
matters
merely
related
a
to
royal decree might be more than simple text, as if there was something more hidden within the same message, a structure, an order that was not apparent at first glance. And that means Rosetta Stone is no longer just a declaration, but possibly begins to resemble a code. When the AI began to delve deeper into the entire text of the Rosetta Stone, an interesting observation emerged. The Greek and demonic portions were largely straightforward and clear. Their meaning was already known: a royal decree praising King Tammy V and granting special privileges to priests. This seemed like a typical administrative proclamation. But as the AI analyzed the hieroglyphic portion differently, the picture began to change. The hieroglyphs weren't simply translations of words. In many places, they appeared to be arranged in clusters, as if some symbols combined to form a distinct sign. Initially, these were considered decorative or religious, but the AI noticed a possible structure by looking at their order, spacing, and repetition. The machine noticed that some symbols formed clusters that didn't match normal
historical
syntax.
document
They
written
were
in
arranged
just 3
differently,
languages.
as if some other pattern was
AI has
operating
recently
behind them.
discovered
It was as if a
patterns
hidden signal
and
was
hidden
hidden within an
clues
open
that
message.
may represent
To illustrate
more
this,
than just a
consider simple
translation.
example. Suppose a
But a
newspaper
message.
publishes a simple news
A message
item, but
written
hidden within its
thousands of
letters
years
is a
ago,
secret message
but waiting
that can
for
only be
modern
deciphered by
technology
reading
to
it in a
decipher
specific
it.
way. On
And
the
what
surface,
AI has
everything
now
appears
read,
normal, but
instead
something
of
else is going
explaining
on
history,
underneath. AI
it
hinted
makes
at
it even
something
more
similar.
terrifying.
The Greek and demonic
So
texts were like
be
public
sure to watch
announcements,
this story to
straightforward,
the end,
understandable, and clear.
because
But the
the
arrangement
real
of symbols in the
revelations are
hieroglyphic
yet to
portion
come.
began to resemble not
To
just a
understand the
translation of a language, but a symbolic system. This means it's possible that the message written on the stone operated on 2 levels. One level intended for everyone related to governance and
None of these
administration.
tools
The second
spit
level
out
perhaps
instant
expressing a deeper
translations,
meaning through
but
symbols.
they save
This
time
wasn't a
and make
final
the work
conclusion,
cleaner.
but it was a new direction.
Artificial
Now the
intelligence
Rosetta Stone
can
was
sort
seen not
images,
just as a key to
spot
translation,
patterns,
but also
and
as
pull
a
out
structured
signs
message.
from cluttered
And this is where the
backgrounds.
real unraveling
But it can't
begins.
figure out
when
by
the AI
itself
began to
that a
read the
bird at the
hieroglyphic
end of a
text from
word
a different
signals the name
perspective.
of a
The
god,
themes that emerged
or
were
that
not
2
typical of
signs
ordinary
side by
administrative
side might
language.
combine
While
into
Greek
one
and Ionic
sound.
clearly reflected royal
Those are language
proclamations,
rules
certain
that
groups of
require
symbols seemed
human
to
knowledge.
suggest turmoil,
The software
as if they were
improves
warnings
when it's
rather than
trained on
stories.
huge,
These symbols
carefully
repeatedly
checked
echoed
data
similar
sets.
sentiments. The
That's
breakdown
why
of
these
order, the
projects
wrath
always
of the gods,
involve
images of fire
Egyptologists
falling from
and
the sky,
museums
and
with
rivers turning
massive
against
photo
humans.
archives.
Interestingly, their tone
And
didn't
that's
seem
what
to be a
makes the
description
story of the
past.
Rosetta Stone so
And the language
powerful.
seemed
Their
to hint
festivals.
not just at what has already
To us,
happened,
that might
but
sound
also at
small,
what might happen.
but back then, these
One
cults
line in
drew
particular
massive
stands
crowds.
out. Those who awaken the
Supporting
voice
them
of
wasn't
stone will
just
hear
religious.
what they fear.
It was
This
smart
doesn't have to be
politics
taken
and good
literally,
publicity.
but in a symbolic
The decree
sense,
then
it prompts
spells
one
out
to
what
wonder
the
if this
king would
message
get
is
in
for those
return.
who will be able
And
to
the
read these
details are
symbols
very
in the
precise.
future, where the
His
stone was
birthday
broken or
and
the
his
text was
coronation day
incomplete.
were
And
to
the
be
AI
celebrated
also
every
suggested
year
possible
with rituals
extensions
and
based on
parades.
language patterns.
His name
These
was to be
reconstructions
spoken in
repeatedly
services
revealed
alongside
certain
the
scenarios.
gods.
The spread of disease,
Statues of
grain
him
shortages,
were to be placed in
floods,
public
and
temple
ultimately the
spaces.
downfall of human
The
arrogance.
priests were told
All of this
exactly what
unfolded
to
not as a
carve and where to
prophecy,
place
but
the
as a recurring
slabs.
experience.
It locked the deal
fear
in.
here
The
wasn't
king
a
looked
mysterious
generous
curse,
and
but
divine.
rather the realization
The priests
that the things
gained
hinted at had
relief
occurred
and honor.
before in human history.
And the public got a
Famines,
calendar
epidemics,
filled with
natural
reminders
disasters.
tying
These are
their
nothing
ruler
new.
to the
But when
gods.
such a layer of
The
symbols
text
is
even helps
discovered in an
confirm the
ancient
date
text,
by
it's
naming
natural for
4
people
high
to begin to
priests
see them
who
in a
held
contemporary
office at the
context.
time,
This
including
interpretation doesn't
Aetos,
mean
son of
stone
Aetos,
literally tells the future.
who oversaw
Rather, it
cults
suggests
tied
that
to
ancient
Alexander
writers
the Great
often used
and the
symbols to
Ptolemaic
convey
line.
warnings
Those
that
names
remain
give
relevant
historians
over
a
time.
cross-check
The AI may
to
have
match
simply
the ancient
pointed out
calendar
these
with
symbols,
our
which were
own.
previously overlooked
And
as
that's
mere
why the
decorative or religious
196
language.
BC date
In other words,
is
this
secure.
terrifying discovery
Some
seems
people
less
wonder
like a
about the
magical
conflicting
message
dates
and more
in
like
the
a
decree.
reminder of the
But
repetitive
here's the
nature
short
of human
version. The
experiences.
main body
And
names
this is
March
where the story
27th,
becomes most poignant, because
196
the question is
BC,
no longer what the past
the day
says,
the
but
priests
how we
met
understand
in
it
Memphis.
today. When AI
Other
revealed
sections
warning
in
signs
Greek
within
and
the Rosetta
hieroglyphs
Stone,
mention
another
November
intriguing question
27th,
arose. Were such things limited
197
to
BC,
Egypt, or were similar
the coronation
signs hidden in other
anniversary.
ancient civilizations
The demonic
around
version
the world?
places
Or
both
if we look
in March.
closely, almost every
Scholars
ancient
disagree
culture
on
contains
why,
stories that
but they
speak of
agree on
destruction,
the big picture.
devastation, and the
The
consequences
decree
of
was
human
issued
arrogance.
in Memphis
Take an
in
ancient Egyptian tale,
196
that of the goddess
BC.
Sekhmet.
Step
It is
back,
said that when
and the
humans
whole thing
rebelled
looks
against the
less
gods,
like
the sun
royal
god
bragging
Ra
and
sent
more
Sekhmet
like
to
a
punish
deal.
them. She proved so
The
destructive
priests
that
offered
rivers
their
of blood
public
flowed
support
across the
and
earth.
raised the
Ultimately,
king's
she was
status
cleverly
to
stopped.
godlike.
Otherwise,
The king
mankind
gave
could have
them
been
tax
wiped out.
relief,
This may
debt
seem like
forgiveness,
just a myth,
food
but its underlying
supplies,
message is
and
clear.
festival
When
funding.
the balance is disrupted,
It was a
the
trade
consequences are
written in
devastating.
stone.
Similarly,
The three
Mesopotamian
scripts
tale of
carved into
Gilgamesh
the
mentions
face
a great
weren't
flood
just
that wiped
about
out almost
reaching
all
more
of
readers.
humanity.
They
The same
showed
idea
that
is
this
found in the
deal
biblical
applied
story of Noah,
everywhere.
where a divine flood
Hieroglyphs
wipes out
linked
the
it
world.
to sacred
Greek
tradition.
mythology also involves the
Demotic
story
tied
of
it to
Deucalon
daily
and Pyrrha,
administration.
a similar flood that
Greek
only a few
locked it
people survived.
into government
Looking
law.
further back with the Mayan
If you were a
civilization
priest,
viewed
you
time
could
in
recite it.
cycles.
If you
cycles
were
that
a
carry
scribe,
both
you could
creation
file
and
it.
destruction.
If you were a
Their
clerk,
calendar
you could
mentions
enforce
periods
it.
where the world
Same
changes
message,
from one
3
form
languages,
to another, sometimes
one
through natural
kingdom.
disaster.
Key
The
things
Hindu
like maybe
tradition
there are
also has the
numbers,
concept of
and very
yugas,
quickly you get an
Satyuga,
idea of roughly what
Taluga,
it is.
Dwapara
So you can
Yuga, and
generally
Kali
tell
Yuga.
these
The end of
administrative
each
texts
yuga
quite
is said to mark the
quickly.
decline
This
of
wasn't
society
theory.
in a new
Archaeologists have found
This isn't
other
a
copies of the
straightforward
decree,
prophecy, but
just
rather a
like the
hint of
order
a
said they
pattern that
should.
balance is
Some of those
disrupted and then
copies were
restored over
updated to
time.
mention local
Now, the
victories
question
or
is,
changes.
are all these stories
One
just
in
fiction,
Upper
or do
Egypt,
they
for
conceal
example,
a shared
celebrated the
experience?
retaking
One
of
idea is that
Thebes.
these myths actually serve
That
as survival
proves the
guides.
decree wasn't
Ancient
just a
societies
single
didn't
event.
have a scientific language,
It was
but
part
they
of an
did have
ongoing
experiences.
program to keep
Floods,
the king's
droughts,
image alive and
epidemics,
strong
wars.
year after year.
These experiences were preserved in the form of stories so that future generations could learn from them. That is, myths weren't just entertainment, they were also warnings. Warnings delivered not as direct commands, but as stories, because stories are remembered. When these stories from different civilizations are put together, a common pattern emerges: disruption of balance, the wrath of nature, and the consequences of human hubris. It seems more like a shared memory than a mysterious prophecy, and perhaps this is the universal message which has resurfaced in different forms over time. The story of the Rosetta Stone isn't just about discovery and language. It's always been a story of control. When French soldiers discovered it in 1799, it was in their possession. But a few years later, when Napoleon was defeated, the stone passed into the possession of the British and was placed in the British Museum in London. This means that control over the very thing that held the key to understanding history also became a form of power. But control over history means not just knowing the past, but also deciding what story to tell the world. When you possess important relics of a civilization, you can shape its meaning. Times have changed, but the situation isn't entirely different. Now, control over data, not the stone, is crucial. labs, major institutions, and governments all are working with information that can transform our understanding. When AI analysis is performed on ancient texts like the Rosetta Stone, naturally, not every result is immediately made public. There's often talk of certain findings not being shared yet to avoid spreading misunderstanding or unnecessary fear. This doesn't prove a conspiracy, but it does show that the way we handle information is a responsibility. In ancient times, access to knowledge was limited. Only priests and scribes could read sacred texts. They decided what would and wouldn't reach the general public to some extent, and this same pattern still exists today. The only difference is that now, instead of temples, there are research institutes and palm leaves digital files. This also has a global aspect. If an ancient source offers a clue that is considered significant in a modern context, its interpretation can have an impact that transcends borders. Therefore, institutions often proceed cautiously. Ultimately, this reminds us that knowledge isn't just information, it's also a responsibility. See, and the way we understand and share it is a power in itself. The biggest question now is,
Because
what does all
every
this mean for
generation
us
since
today?
has
If we
found a
simply
new
treat
way
those
to
clues as
listen.
prophecies, things
Thanks
will
for
go wrong.
watching.
Rosetta
Now,
Stone
check
isn't
out the
a fortune
videos
teller,
popping
nor
up
does it
on
list
screen
future
for more
events. But when the
unbelievable
themes
stories.
revealed by AI,
A
disease
stone that
outbreaks,
allowed
weather
humans to
fluctuations,
decipher ancient
floods,
Egyptian
fires,
languages.
and food shortages are
But
juxtaposed
when it
with
was
today's
recently
world. A
rescanned
striking
using
similarity
AI,
emerges.
what
We've
emerged
witnessed a global
changed the
pandemic in
entire
recent
story.
years. Floods
While
and
previously
wildfires have
considered
impacted
a
lives in many places. Changing weather patterns are challenging both agriculture and water. Your discussions of pressure on food supplies have also become commonplace. This isn't new. Similar situations have occurred before in history. Therefore, it wouldn't be accurate to call it a prediction of the future. It might more accurately be seen as a memory, a recollection of a time when societies faced similar challenges and tried to learn from them. AI didn't create any new warnings. It simply illuminated patterns that may have existed but were previously invisible. It's as if layers of old experiences had been peeled back and brought to light. From this perspective, the Rosetta Stone seems like a mirror. It doesn't offer us a glimpse into some distant future, but rather reveals the reasons human societies have often found themselves in trouble, a breakdown in balance, the misuse of resources, and sometimes an overconfidence in their own abilities. This is not a story of mystical fear, but a simple reminder that the challenges we faced in history were often linked to human behavior. And perhaps most importantly, the message lies not in the stone, but in our behavior. Perhaps the stone isn't telling the future, but rather it's revealing what every civilization doesn't hear before its fall. If you enjoy stories like this about history and the truths behind AI, be sure to subscribe to the channel because the next discovery might just change our thinking.